Hi, everyone. Welcome to our September meeting of the Boston SpEdPAC. My name is Jack Sinnott. I'm the chair, and I thank you very much for taking your time out of your evening. I'm sure your life is as busy as mine, and it means a lot to us that we get a chance to hear your voice and to share some information for you. I'm going to share the agenda right now. It won't be up for the whole time. We have very little time before we want to get into our presentation tonight. We'll be starting that at about 7:15, going through 8:15, and then at 8:15 there'll be a comment period for all of our members to let us know what's going on. First announcement I wanted to make: we have a new board. It's up there on the screen, and we also have a lot of opportunities for our membership to get involved. You don't have to be a board member at all to get involved in our various efforts. And as you can see here on our interested in getting involved, it's everything from a resource fair to marketing and transportation issues, which I know is near and dear to many SpEdPAC hearts. Please reach out to us at that email. We're going to post that link in the chat. We'll also be posting links to our newsletter, and specifically for feedback around your child's transportation experience and your child's summer experience. Our next general meeting will be October 26th via Zoom. And the topic will be BPS transportation. Right now, I'd like to take a moment to introduce Kay Seale. She's the Chief of Specialized Services with BPS. And I want to thank her for taking some time to meet with us this evening. Ms. Seale.
Oops. Thank you so much, Jack, and good evening. It's a pleasure and an honor for me to reach out and talk to you tonight. This is my transition back to Boston Public Schools. I was also a student in Boston Public Schools, and I've worked in Boston Public Schools for over 10 years as an educator and also in different leadership roles. The most important thing that I would say that I truly enjoyed doing was being a department head in one of your high schools, in one of our high schools, South Boston High School, where I was able to work with students, parents, families, and teaching staff to really look at what we need to do to really improve our academic rigor and excellence for our students with disabilities. I'm returning to Boston Public Schools after being the Director of Special Education for Worcester Public Schools for over 10 years. So I'm looking forward to hopefully someday meeting you in person when we do return to some in-person meetings, but I know that might not be possible given the size of our audience, but I am located at Bowling. I will put my email address in the chat if any of you would like to reach out to me or connect with me. I always have an open door policy to talk to our families. Your voice is very important. I understand what it's like to have a child with a disability because I do have family members as well as my own children too who also have a disability. So we're here to support. My Office of Specialized Services is phenomenal. We have such dedicated staff. There's so many resources that we are looking forward to sharing with you and presenting to you this school year. If there are specific topics that you would like us to focus on for next school year, because I know that our phenomenal SpEdPAC leaders have already put together a very thoughtful and informative series of trainings and information for you. But we will plan for next year as well so that we can also get some assistance from you in identifying and crafting out our agenda for next school year. However, I just wanted to also let you know that there was a school committee meeting last night, and I'm sure some of you were able to join that school committee meeting. Two of your officers, Jack and Kelsey, did a phenomenal job in terms of talking about their priorities for you as parents and caregivers for the district. They made a wonderful evening in terms of developing relationships with our school committee members and also our school committee officers, as well as our superintendent of schools, Mary Skipper. We are here to serve, and we're here to support our families, and we're here to also make sure that we're doing the best that we can in providing educational services to meet the individual needs of our students, as well as students in 504 plans. That is also under the responsibility of the Office of Specialized Services. We're responsible for our students that are found eligible for IEP services, as well as students who need access and accommodations through a 504 plan. I'm just going to share with you just a couple of priority areas that I shared last night with school committee members that we really want to make sure that we're keeping you informed. One of the priority areas that I shared last night, I'm just going to share a couple, is that, as you may not know this, but there has been lots of discussion about the district developing an inclusion plan. And we are still in the process of finalizing that plan. As soon as everything is finalized, we've had some forums with families, with some community stakeholders, with our SpEdPAC officers, and we want to make sure that you're well informed as to how the plan is going to be implemented within our schools. And I want you to also not be worried about your child's services not being provided because of these changes, because we do have a moral and a legal obligation to continue to provide IEP services for your child. So that will continue as well. But what we are focused on doing is making sure that we are, as a district, that we're presenting a lens of equity, and we're making sure that our students with disabilities and our 504 students as well, that they also have access to grade level learning. So for example, if your child has a disability and your child is reading at a 3rd grade level, but your child is a 5th grade student, we want to make sure that your child has opportunities to access that grade level content and be a part of his, I would say, to be a part of the learning environment of his peers that are age appropriate. So it's really important that we provide opportunities for our students, no matter where they are in terms of their skill or development, to have access to grade level content in their learning. We're also going to be working closely with our coordinators of special education to make sure that we continue to make you feel welcome and part of the IEP process and or part of the 504 plan process. It's so important that we engage our families and we present information in a way that makes you feel as if you're part of the team and that you understand what's being stated and what's being shared. We know at times that things may be complicated or might be very intense because there's a lot of information that's presented to you, but I would really ask for you to reach out to your school coordinator of special education, either before the meeting or after the meeting, if you feel confused or if you need additional information, or if you just need things explained to you differently, or a way that you can really ask some questions that you may not have had the opportunity to ask at your child's meeting. So we are here to serve you, and we're here to support you, and we're here to work with you. So that's so important. The other thing I wanted to share with you tonight is that, as you may know, the Department of Elementary and Secondary Education will be rolling out a new IEP. I will like to work with our SpEdPAC officers and the board to really look at how we can start sharing some of that information to get you prepared, because the implementation of that new plan will begin school year 2024. Some of you may have already checked out the DESE website to get some information on that. But what that means is that the whole process, not the process, the documented forms and the steps and how that information is presented and gathered in an IEP format will change somewhat. So DESE has restructured what the IEP plan will look like. We want to make sure that our parents are—
Not to interrupt, I just want to call out that I think we're getting some support for the Spanish interpretation room.
Okay.
Charlie and Joshi, if you guys can just confirm that you're working on it. We have just a number of people in the chat asking for that support.
Okay.
I just wanted to catch you before we're wrapping it up here.
Okay, sure. Thank you so much. Is this also recorded?
Yes, it's being
Yes,
recorded
this
right
is
now.
recorded.
Okay, thank you.
Sorry.
No, that's
Yes,
okay.
Andrea, Tracy, we're having trouble with your audio coming in and out, so just be mindful of that. Families are having trouble getting into the channel and accessing interpretation in your channel at this time.
Thank you, Joshi.
Thank you, Yashi.
The
Ms.
channel
Seale,
is open.
we're going to need
so-
to. Yeah, go ahead, Charlie.
Sure, the channel
Yep.
is open, and so Spanish interpreter, if you can please make sure that your connection is stable.
Yep, there's just one other thing I wanted to add, and I'm going to wrap it up. I also just wanted to add that it's so important for us to appreciate and partner and support the fact that we are a very diverse city, and we really value the cultural competencies of our families and our caregivers. We want to make sure that what we do, that we provide a sense of belonging for our students as well as for our families. So we look forward to partnering with you as a parent or caregiver to doing the absolute very best to meet the needs of your child or children that are attending the Boston Public Schools. I hope you enjoyed today's presentation. And once again, please do not hesitate to reach out to me via email if you would like to talk to me further. Thank you and have a great evening.
Thank you, Ms. Seale. I certainly look forward to providing a voice for all of our community in both that new IEP rollout and getting feedback from all, hopefully 12,000 families around the inclusion planning and ensuring that we get the services and accommodations in IEPs and 504s. Thank you very, very much for coming and speaking.
Absolutely. And thank you for being a voice for all of our families.
Absolutely,
Yesterday's school
of course.
committee, you and Kelsey did a phenomenal job, and just the feedback from the school committee members were very, very exciting, but also shows the partnership that we'll be working towards moving forward.
Thank you, ma'am.
Thank
All right,
you.
so without further ado, let's get on to our presentation. I know I'm excited to hear this. So I want to introduce Kelsey Brendl. She is our vice chair, and she'll be spearheading this this presentation. Take it away, Kelsey.
Thank you so much, and thank you again to Kay Seale for coming again. Can't say it enough. We're so thrilled to have you here. In the interest of time, let's get started. So excited to welcome Gina McClellan, who is our featured speaker for this evening. If you didn't already know, we're here to learn more about the IEP process. And again, without further ado, I want to make sure she gets the most amount of time possible. I will encourage families, though, if you have questions, doesn't matter what they are about, to whom you wish they would be directed, put them in the chat. We will be sure in the aftermath of all this that we, get them to the right people and places. A note on a couple of other folks who are on this call who are here to help you. We can utilize them in as best a way we can. They will help to answer your questions and guide you. We have Christine Trevesone, who's a special advisor to the superintendent for specialized services. We have Mary Marcella and Julia Pandolif, both assistant directors for specialized services. We're so grateful to them for coming to support tonight. So also, again, they will be participating in the chat. Questions that you have at the end that we will make time for, we will take those questions live as we have enough time to answer them, and they will be here to support. So without any more fuss and muss, welcome to Gina, who's going to take it away from here. Thanks so much for coming.
Well, thank you so much for having me.
Sorry, Gina, I apologize really, really quick. Just a reminder to everyone that is speaking, if you can speak clearly and also pause every so often. We are interpreting in 13 languages, including ASL. And so we should be mindful that everyone has access. Thank you.
I will try to go slow, but I'm a parent of a child with ASD, so everything I do is always fast and when rushed. But thank you, Boston SpEdPAC, for having me. I think that one of the best parts of my job is empowering parents and caregivers. So when I was asked to talk about 504s and IEPs, I'm always happy to, because I think that power is knowledge is power. And I think it's really important that everyone come to the table and be an active participant in this crazy world of special education and 504 plans. So I'm Gina McClellan. I am a special education advocate. I do work with families of children with special needs. I understand that families with children who have special needs face a unique challenge. And when learning issues arise, parents often need guidance. And so that's where an advocate can come in. So what we're here to talk about tonight is 504s and IEPs and what is the difference. One of the basic differences between a 504 plan and an IEP is that 504 plans are a civil rights law, and Section 504 protects the rights of people with disabilities. It ensures that they have equal access to all public services that get funding from the federal government. And that includes public schools and charter schools, anyone who gets federal funding. So the 504 plan is an accommodation plan. An IEP is a feature of the Individual with Disabilities Education Act, or IDEA. The IEP is a part of the, as I said, the federal special education law, and they're created to remove learning barriers and provide specialized instruction and services to help a child develop the skills that their disability impacts. So however their disability impacts their ability to access the curriculum and the life of the school. Special education is specially designed instruction, and it is specially designed instruction is to meet the unique needs of the child with a disability, to ensure the child's access to the general education curriculum, and to prepare them for future education, employment, and independent living. Both 504 plans and IEPs are legal contracts between you and the school is required to follow them. For either a 504 or an IEP, you will need to keep track of how the school is doing what the document says. You should meet with your 504 or IEP team every year, but you can ask to meet anytime you need to. The next question is, what should be included in each plan? And 504 plans include accommodations. They are adjustments in the classroom environment to help a child get past the barriers that are caused by their disability. IEPs, again, include specialized instruction and related services. So specialized instruction really means working with a special education teacher or a related service provider. And a related service provider is your speech and language therapist, your occupational therapy, physical therapy, or behavioral therapy, anyone who provides those services. An IEP has specific goals and objectives for the student and indicates and has the ability to measure progress, but a 504 does not. 504 is strictly accommodations. One of the pieces that I think IEPs have is it has a cycle. So the IEP cycle really starts with, and this is going to be a basic overview, the evaluation process. And the evaluation process is the first initial introduction to the IEP team typically comes from teachers and or parents. If parents are requesting an evaluation for eligibility for specialized instruction or an IEP, parents should always put their request in writing. The evaluation process is really, it gets the process started. Parents request or give consent to a full and individual initial evaluation in all areas of the suspected disability. And as I said before, a teacher or other professional can also refer a child for an evaluation process. So that's really making the referral. The evaluations provide a deep analysis of the strengths and needs of the student. It provides baseline data it will provide recommendations. And this data and the recommendations are used to determine eligibility for an IEP. After the evaluations are complete, parents or caregivers have the opportunity to request those evaluations from the school 48 hours prior to the initial meeting. Now, here's a tip. BPS knows this of me. I always ask for eligibility meetings on a Tuesday because it gives you time over the weekend to read these reports. Just a little tip, because those reports can be really thick and you have to take the time to read through them and understand them. And it takes a lot of time. So you can always try to get your meeting on a Monday or Tuesday so you can get the reports over the weekend. Just a little tip. So when you sit down for the eligibility meeting, there are a couple of questions that are asked. Does the child have a disability? And for an IEP, there are 13 categories, and we can briefly touch on them in a minute. Does the disability adversely affect educational performance? And are specially designed instruction or special education and or related services, speech, OT, PT, behavioral supports necessary? So those disability categories, there are 13 of them: autism, deafness, blindness, emotional disturbance, hearing impairment, intellectual disability, multiple disabilities, orthopedic impairment, other health impairment, specific learning disability, speech and language impairment, traumatic brain injury, visual impairment, including blindness. When you talk about developmental delay, when a child has a developmental delay, it's typically for students who aren't developing as projected up until the age of 9. And at 9, there has to be another category, to put that simply. So you will go through the eligibility flow chart and at that meeting, and it will be determined, is the student eligible for special education? There are several questions that are on the IEP flow chart. Is the student making effective progress in school? If the answer is yes, that student is not going to be eligible for special education, but may be eligible based on their disability for a 504 plan under, again, Section 504 of the Rehabilitation Act. If the answer is no, the next question is the lack of progress a result of the disability? And if it's no, you can be eligible for a 504 potentially, or if the answer is yes, the real question is, does the student require specially designed instruction in order to make effective progress in school? And if the answer is yes to that, the student is eligible and the IEP will be developed. Who are members of the IEP team? Parents or guardians. There's a general education teacher, a special education teacher, a district representative, individuals who can interpret the evaluation results, related service providers. If the child is over the age or is 14 and older, the child can participate and is invited to participate and probably should participate in the IEP meeting at that time. Next slide. So the team must consider first and foremost the concerns of the parent or guardian. And this should be a statement that you should prepare ahead of time for both a 504 meeting and an IEP meeting. The parent concern statement should be prepared in advance, and it should be an accurate representation of your concerns. Just an example of one, these are your words, and you can put whatever you want in this statement. This is your forum to speak, and your forum as parents, guardians, and caregivers to speak on your concerns. They can be brief, they can be lengthy. It's really, again, your forum, but they should really highlight your concerns. So as an example, a parent concern statement can be as simple as, we are concerned with Dylan's level of independence, his self-advocacy skills, his problem-solving skills. We're concerned with his ability to make informed life decisions. So that should guide a lot of the discussion that you're having with the team. Your concerns must be addressed. And it should be for both 504 and IEP meetings. Prepare that statement. It's really, really important.
Gina?
Yes.
I'm so sorry. Could I just ask you to pause for 1 second? We have a lot of parents asking if you have a slide presentation.
I'm not at liberty to share the slide presentation. I apologize.
No, let me jump right in here. No, we're not slides aren't part of this presentation.
Okay.
Oh, everyone, good. Keep asking your questions away in the chat as you see them.
So the IEP will be developed. The parent concerns, as I said, is extremely important. Come prepared. Come prepared with your vision. What is the vision of for your student? If your vision is that your student graduate with a diploma in 4 years' time at grade level, that needs to be addressed in a part of the IEP. If the student is age 14 or turning 14 within that IEP period of time, what's their vision? What do they want for their future? If they want to be a chef, then that should be a part of the IEP. Students' vision is that they will become a culinary arts student and become a chef someday. And we should do everything to support that vision, not only as parents and caregivers and guardians, but also the entire IEP team. That vision should always be on the forefront of the mission, the student should always be the forefront of the mission. We will talk about student strengths. We'll talk about the evaluation summaries, and those will all be included in the IEP as well. Then you will talk about the academic and developmental needs of the student. At that time, you'll also talk about, what accommodations are needed for the student to be successful in the general education environment or in the special education environment. What do they need to be successful? So again, preparing for the meeting, it is very important to have some accommodations listed out, and come with a notebook and come with a script. It's really important that your message gets heard, and you only have 60, maybe 90 minutes in this meeting. Of course, if you go over, the team can always reconvene. But if you have your list of accommodations ready for, again, an IEP meeting or a 504 meeting, be very important. So after an IEP, let me back up. After you discuss accommodations, you will discuss goal areas, and the goal areas need to be written. I'm sure you've heard of SMART goals, but let me back up. The first part of a goal area is called current levels of performance. And that is what the student can do right now. That is your baseline data. So whenever people say, well, how do I measure progress? I always say, start with the current levels of performance when you're developing an IEP. Make sure they are accurate. So, you know, if the current levels will give you substantial data, then you'll have your goal of what you want the student to do in a year, and you'll have your benchmarks or objectives of how you're going to get to that goal. An example, really brief example of a goal here would be, Gina will do 10 jumping jacks at the end of the IEP period. In the current levels of performance, you need to know that Gina can do 2. So how do you measure progress is what a parent always asks me. Well, I know that Gina could do 2. They want her to do 10. Where is she now? What do your progress reports tell you? So it's very important that the current levels of performance have accurate data. I can't stress that enough. Another tip that I typically would do is I'd look at each and every benchmark in that goal area, and I'd look for the data in the current levels of performance. So just cross-reference your current levels and your benchmarks. I don't want to get too stuck in the muck here, but it's very important that you have data to measure your goals, and that is where you'll find it. It should always be in the current levels of performance. So I talked about that. So again, you want to have SMART goals. You'll always hear about SMART goals, which are specific, measurable, attainable, relevant, and time-bound. An example of a SMART goal would be, given first grade reading material, Sam will read aloud at 50 to 80 words per minute with fewer than 3 random errors. That is one example. It's specific, it's measurable, and it's attainable. The IEP document should talk about the related services. Related services, again, we spoke of your related service providers. So your speech and language, occupational therapy, speech and language, behavioral assistive technology, can go on and on and on. So we will talk about the program modifications and support for school personnel so that your child can be educated with other children, both with and without disabilities. So that's the least restrictive environment, which you hear a lot about. There's a statement and it's called the non-participation statement, and that's why your child is removed. And that's another really important statement to have a really good understanding of why your child is removed from the general education setting. When you're developing the IEP, you should also talk about your state and district-wide assessments and accommodations needed. This is an area, again, that would be in a 504 as well. Participation in state and district-wide assessments, accommodations. What does the student need to be successful? There is a very large list of accommodations, and you can find them on DESE's website, and you can go over them before the meeting. And again, if your student is old enough, you can go over the accommodations with them and say, do you feel comfortable testing in a large group? And they may say, yeah, I'm fine with it. Or they may say, no, I really need to be in a separate environment. So really having your student engaged and talking about those accommodations would be very, very helpful. So we talked about, again, I'm giving you a very brief overload of, your parent concerns, accommodations. You need to talk about your vision statement, and then you would develop your IEP, your goals, your service delivery, your testing accommodations. And then after the IEP is developed, you would talk about placement. And that does happen after the IEP is developed, because the IEP drives the placement. The placement, the least restrictive environment is always considered first. The least restrictive environment, or the acronym is LRE. And the least restrictive environment is always general education setting, being surrounded by your peers. And from there, you go to more restrictive environments. The placement needs to be determined based on your child's unique need. As I said, the continuum of placements really is general education, special education classes, substantially separate, and then it could, after you go into your substantially separate environment, if in fact that your student does not make progress in that substantially separate environment, your student may need a more restrictive environment. And that could be a 766 school or a collaborative program. So the placement team includes the parents, and that's very important to know as well. So after the IEP is created, the parent has to sign the document and monitor progress. As I said, you should monitor progress and monitor all of the accommodations need to be, you need to monitor everything, basically. All of the accommodations are being put into place, that progress reports are given to you in an appropriate and timely fashion. You will meet with your IEP team or 504 team every year. And you can reconvene your IEP team and 504 team really at any time. And the reevaluation process for the IEP happens every 3 years. That was a very, very quick overview of the process. I think there are a lot of.
Oh, sorry to interrupt, Gina. I was just going to ask you, I thought, oh, this is the perfect time to ask. When you after sort of a summary, you're right, it's hard to plow through absolutely everything, right? That
Yes,
families, it's just, that would be quite a task. But what would you, I guess for families that have sort of done everything they think they can do, right? They've met they've checked every box that they have so far, looking at all of the, the plethora of things that you've mentioned and beyond. What's sort of the next step for a family that thinks, I'm at the point where I think I've done everything I can do. What should I do then if it's still all going south? Because I think at the end of the day, people also just want to know when you can utilize zero tools, or you're sort of reached the end of your rope and you don't know who to turn to. What's your recommendation about where they can go from there?
Well, for students that are already on an IEP, that's a loaded question again, because well, are they eligible yet, or are they not eligible? So utilizing your procedural safeguards is huge, and knowing your rights is huge. The BSEA has a lot of safeguards put in place for families to utilize, and they should be utilized. Mediation, for example, is a great process. It really is a thoughtful process, and all procedural safeguards should be used if families are feeling overwhelmed and this isn't working and I don't know where to go next. But, for mediation, for example, if you are looking to negotiate and come to an agreement with the district, both sides, it's a voluntary process. So both sides would come to the table and try to work out the grievance, if you will.
Yes.
A wonderful resource that is provided in the state of Massachusetts is the Federation for Children with Special Needs, and they have a hotline. I'm sure most parents may know about it, may not. That can help parents navigate the special education in 504 world. It's a free service. It's the Federation, they're phenomenal. And so I always plug the Federation because I think that it's a great resource for families.
And I think that's kind of, the really important lens at the end of the day, which is there is always a next step. It's a matter of finding what it is, who to ask, and we're here for that. As I mentioned before, we've got all of our supports from Boston Public Schools to answer questions about exactly what those next steps can be, why you would take them. And when you really don't know even what the roadmap suggests, there are lots of people in the position that Gina is also in that you can reach out to, resources that we will be sure of in this chat and afterwards. So I think the important thing is obviously to hang in, and we will find the answers together and be sure that in the context of this meeting too, questions that are related to your particular student, we won't be able to address in this meeting, but it makes sure that you put your questions, however broad or specific, in the chat, and we will direct things after we say goodbye to our speaker so that we can be sure that we tackle all of the intricacies and things that come up. Gina, is there anything else that you think, families should know about in terms of resources that we can also always post afterwards in the chat or in our flyer that you think would be useful? I know you mentioned the Federation. Anything else like that
there's mass advocates. There are resources out there for families. But I always, first and foremost, I always say to parents, be as transparent as possible. The mission here is your child, and it's hard. This world is really hard, and I know firsthand. I am also a parent of a child with special needs, and you feel vulnerable, and the playing field doesn't feel fair, and it doesn't feel even a lot of the time. So use your resources. Become educated. I gave you a really, really brief overview, and I do wish I had visuals. I'm really sorry about that. But I gave you a brief overview. But if in fact you need to learn more, again, the Federation is a great tool, and you should definitely reach out to those resources within BPS as well. And again, the Federation and mass advocates are a great resource.
Thank you so much. And we will, in the interest of time, turn our attention then to some questions. So I know that you've got to head on to a million other things, but we will turn our attention to, I think, initially some questions in the chat that came up and can be universally addressed, and we'll see how many we can get to. Again, if we don't get to yours, put it in the chat anyway, and we'll be sure we follow up. Andrea, do you have a question?
I've been grabbing a couple that are kind of general that I think I can, maybe everyone could benefit hearing. I know some of these questions have been answered, but I'm still gonna highlight it because I think everybody might benefit. So Catherine, thanks for throwing this question into the chat. She asked, do I still have a say-so on my daughter's IEP who just turned 18 years old? So we know it could be a collaboration between the parent and the child, but I guess the question is, who's really in charge once the child's legally an adult?
I'm wondering, is there any?
Technically, once your child is 18, they're emancipated. Most children, welcome their continued parental involvement. Beyond 18, however, you would need a court-ordered guardianship to have legal recourse over your child's education and IEP decisions. But I've honestly, in my limited experience, I've never heard of a child that really wanted their parents to step back from their educational process. Problematic family
Kelsey.
situations aside.
So
Hey, Kelsey, this is Charlie.
got it.
Should we have somebody with BPS answer these
Yep,
questions
that's-
for the Q&A? And I just wanted to know who I should spotlight for that.
Yes,
Anyone who's in charge
can-
of the age of majority notice should answer this question.
we have Mary Marcella here, and we also have, I think I mentioned Julia Pandolfi. I think she, BPS, thank you for supporting. Could you kindly take on the questions that are coming up as you see fit? That would be super.
Julia, since you're the high school AD, do you want to take the high school one?
Sure. So can I just unmute? Do you hear me?
Yep, we can hear you.
Oh, great. So,
you.
we always invite parents to the meeting. If someone's the age of majority Massachusetts, which is 18, then the student would be legally responsible for their own education and have the right to make decisions about their IEP, with the exception of whether or not there's a court-appointed guardian, then the guardian would continue to have decision-making authority. There's also at 17, we start having this conversation with parents, sorry. So it's not a total surprise. And at that time, students are encouraged to choose whether or not they want shared decision-making with their parents or another trusted adult.
Great, thank you. Do we have another, is there another chat question, Andrea, that would?
Yeah, there's another one that seemed to come up a couple times. And this commenter, thank you for the comments. I know you got a lot of responses, but this is another one I think we would benefit from the group to hear. We know that age 14 students can attend the IEP meetings. A question was, can they attend before 14 years old?
Yeah, so we encourage parents, they know their child best, and teachers to have students participate in the IEP process as soon as they're old enough and mature enough. Now, this doesn't mean that they have to attend for the entire meeting. They can come and list their concerns or ask questions and then be excused from the meeting. But before they're 14, we would have that at the discretion of the parent.
They can also come for, sorry, can you hear me? Okay, they can also come for part of the meeting. So as parent or as students approach 14, sometimes it's really helpful to have them come just for even introductions or to share their own concerns. It's really good practice for sitting through the longer meetings once they're over 14. So around 10 or 11, we start to encourage our students to come be a part of it. However long that they feel comfortable. Again, the parent knows best, but it's really nice for them to just kind of start to understand the process, that we're all here to talk about the strengths and what we can do to support, and they can also share their own feelings.
So saw another, I saw a hand up, trying to find it now. Did somebody have a question they wish to ask live? Andrea, do you see that one?
I don't, but I do have another question that popped up in the
Another
chat.
question in the chat that would be good.
So Mandy, thanks for asking this question. It's a really good one. The question is, how does an IEP or 504 planning or needs impact school choice, particularly at the placement at the high school level?
I can't unmute.
We can
You're
hear
not
you.
muted, Mary.
Okay, all right, awesome. Thank you. Sorry, I don't know if there's a lag on my Zoom, but it keeps saying that there's a little red microphone. So it is important that your school choices are controlled by your child's IEP. Doesn't mean that you only have one choice or you can only go to a certain school. We are working on making schools more inclusive. As you've heard, that's a huge push for this year to have more programs, more availability, more students get to stay in schools. However, if your child is, and there's 2 hinge years now because we've gone K-6 in a lot of our schools, and you'll notice that a lot of our larger high schools have gone 7 to 12. though there are still K to 8s that exist and 9 to 12s that exist. So if your child is at one of those hinge years, a 6th grade year, an 8th grade year, I often work with those families to try to move their IEP meetings up just in case there would be any substantial changes to their students' IEPs that would affect choice. So actually, we just met on one today that I was present at, and the family is very interested in high schools, wants to start touring, is due for reeval in January. That doesn't make sense when school choice forms will come out in January. So we moved it up to November so that they'll be able to be ensured that the IEP that currently represents the student is selecting the choices. And school choice forms for first round for those hinge years come out in January. So you'd want to have an IEP set by then.
Super. I see a couple hands raised. Let's take a couple of questions that are live. Catherine, is it Effie? If you want to unmute yourself and ask your question, we're here.
And we ask if you can, if somebody has a question, if you please turn on your camera and we'll ask you to unmute, please.
Hello?
Hi.
Hi, Catherine, we can hear you.
Yes, I was the one that was asking about because my daughter, she just turned 18.
Yes. Yeah, good
And
question.
there's a school I'm trying to get her in because she's having some behavior issues in her school. She has an IEP. This specific school is in Roxbury. I can't remember the name. If anybody, I know y'all know about the Dearborn. It sits over by the Dearborn, where the old Phyllis Weekly used to be years ago. It's a special type of school, if you know what I mean. But she's also a teen mom too. And I know I'm just trying to get her into the school because I know it'll just cater to her better, you know, because of her needs, the IEP and being, you know, a teen mom.
Catherine, if you would like to email me, I can talk to you either in the chat or and send you my email. As a assistant director for high schools, I can help talk to you about the different programming that we have available and try to figure out which school you're speaking to.
Compass, somebody put Compass. No, not that school. Compass is
Madison Park or St. Mary's?
No, Compass is in Dorchester. It used to be in Jamaica Plain. I was a Compass kid, but no, not Compass. This is a different school in Roxbury.
Okay,
It sits not too far
Park.
from the courthouse.
We can definitely help you figure it out if you want to email Julia.
Make sure you put all your details, if you can, in, you know, about in the chat, if that's the easiest way, so that Julia can be sure to get directly in touch with you.
All right, I'll put my email in, Julia.
That would be good. Make sure you get your email, your
Thank
phone,
you.
whatever you're comfortable with. I see a hand raised also from Bibi. Hope I'm saying that right. We're ready for your question if you've got it. Bibi, can you hear us? Oh, great.
Buenas noches, hola. Mi pregunta es, no puedo desactivar la cámara, perdón, no se quiere quitar. Pero mi pregunta es, yo tengo un niño de 5 años y él tiene un plan de IP, pero él no tiene nadie en su escuela que le dé el plan. Y eso me tiene un poco preocupada.
So to the team, mom is saying that her child is 5 years old. He has an IEP, but he is receiving the services listed in the IEP and she's concerned.
I'm sorry, could you repeat that?
Yep. Mom is saying that her child is 5 on an IEP. She's concerned that the child is not receiving the services at the school.
Is she comfortable sharing what school?
Bibi, ¿qué escuela está su niño? I don't know where she went.
Muted right now, may not be able to unmute. Let me click the
Let me
button.
ask her to unmute. Give her 1 second.
Oh, I just did the same.
Oh, wait. Okay.
Also,
Bibi,
I
¿a qué
can-
escuela asiste su niño?
No, no estoy escuchando nada.
Let me see if she's in the Spanish channel. 1 second.
Okay. I can also drop my email in the chat and I'm happy to connect with the correct person. Let me put it in the general.
Mary.
All right, the interpreter is asking in the Spanish channel, Vivi, ¿a qué escuela está su niño? Si nos puede dejar saber en el chat o...
Can't access the microphone. Sarah Greenwood.
Oh, él está en la Sarah Greenwood.
Okay.
Okay, so Mary va a poner su correo electrónico en el chat. Favor de escribirle a ella. Si se te hace difícil, pues provéenos su celular o su correo electrónico para poder ayudarla, ¿ok? I think she's just chatting because of her son.
Totally. Also, if she wants to drop her email, I can reach out.
I asked her
Okay.
to either give us her phone or her email.
Okay.
But can you write your email in the chat? In the meeting?
Yes, I can put it again.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mary. With that said, so do we have,
Kelsey, we can move on to the next
okay,
person.
super. I see, let's see, can we, Aislinn, am I saying that right? Do you want to unmute yourself and ask your question? We're here.
It's saying that the host won't let me unmute.
You're all set. We can hear you.
now.
Oh, okay. I'm sorry. So, I have a 15-year-old child, and he experienced serious trauma right after the pandemic. His dad died, and he was at BLS, which is an exam school, and they unenrolled him. Even though I rejected the placement, are schools allowed to unenroll a child if you reject the placement? They wanted to put him into a substantially separate classroom, and they put him into another school. He doesn't want to go there. And even though I rejected the IEP and rejected the placement, he was automatically put in there. I've gone to BPS Welcome Center several times to try to get him back in there. He's refusing to go to school. He's refusing to go to class, and I'm at a loss because he's not getting any education at all.
I am so sorry to hear about that, especially the loss. So sorry for both of you. If you want to email me directly, I'd be more than happy to talk offline or connect you with the correct assistant director and go through the IEP for your child privately. I can drop my email again.
Well, just one more thing too. We live
Sure.
in the section of West Roxbury. We don't have roads. We're kind of all off grid, and my children miss between 15 to 20 days of school every year because in the beginning the bus drivers won't come down the road at all, and then sometimes if they get a new driver, the new driver won't come down at all. So this has been going on for years, and I didn't know what to do about it. I mean, 15 days, my child would have failed and been retained, but because it's transportation, it's excused. So I just wanted to add that. Thank you.
Yeah, and we can definitely talk about that as well when you email. I know also there's the helpline is on, and there are multiple helpline specialists that are dedicated just to transportation issues. So if it's not something I can help you directly with, I can connect you to the right person.
Oh, I've met with everybody. I've met with.
Sorry.
Yeah, it's just something that happens every year. So
I'm sorry, that's really frustrating.
Okay, thank you.
We will help you get to the bottom of it. I promise that. I think I'm looking at the clock. We have a time.
Probably have time for about maybe one or two more questions.
Okay, let's do that. I see, is it Tyne? You have your hand raised? Not sure if you can hear us.
Oh,
Tyne Weston?
yep. I just asked to unmute. Ms. Weston, are you still present?
Oh, great. I think she's. Ms. Weston, can you hear us?
Yes, hi. So my question is, my daughter is in the 3rd grade, and we just had, I guess, an IEP meeting to discuss her evaluation results. And what we found was that she's on a kindergarten level. So they told me that she is not eligible for an IEP right now. However, I feel that she needs an IEP. She has two siblings, one older, one younger than her, that's on an IEP, one for developmental delay, and one, I guess because he was having transitional behaviors in preschool, they put him in elementary school. However, I want my daughter to have an IEP so that she can transfer from the school she's in, and then she'll still have the support that she needed. And I'm wondering if there is a way that I can get her on an IEP, although the school is saying she's not eligible due to attendance because she has elevated scores similar to another 8-year-old or third grader that has ADHD, and she is displaying the symptoms of not being able to concentrate and function and keep still.
So there's a couple things with that. The first would be that anytime that your child is found ineligible, there's multiple processes that you can follow in order to get your child more support. Gina talked a lot about 504s versus IEPs. If your child has diagnosed ADHD or any medical condition, it could be that she might qualify for a 504, where accommodations could be made, such as extra time, frequent breaks, preferred seating like in the front of the room, or things to minimize distractions if that's your concern. If you feel like it is bigger than that and she might need direct services or modifications to the curriculum, that would be more of an IEP. And what I would suggest is you're entitled to an independent evaluation. You can ask the coordinator that held the meeting for that, and you are able to get her evaluated in the areas that you still have concerns. Once you receive those independent evaluations, which BPS would pay for once approved, which I can walk you through that process, you would meet again with the team that evaluated her and see what the independent results show. And sometimes that helps if it's like a medical condition, something like ADHD, because there's a medical diagnosis.
Thank you for that. I hope that was helpful. I think we have time for one more question before we move on to the last section here. I see Courtney's had her hand up. Courtney, go ahead.
Hi, thank you, everyone, and thank you for this conversation. I put sort of a generalized question in the chat, and it builds a little bit off of what Ms. Wesson was sort of just saying. In terms of particularly at a reevaluation meeting, something that Gina talked about was this idea in the flow chart about continued eligibility for specialized services, and this sort of linchpin question of, is your child making progress? And if you answer yes to that, your child is sort of deemed no longer eligible for special education services through an IEP. And I really would appreciate having the district talk through that from both a legal and functional perspective, in terms of both putting parents in the position of having to say, no, their child isn't making progress, when their child is making progress, but by what barometer are we answering that question? And then secondarily, how does that take into account the fact that for many kids, they may be making progress, but they're only making progress because of the special education services they're receiving? And if those are taken out, then, they would be back to not making the kind of progress they were making, and how that all sort of fits in with sort of this model of delivery.
Sure, I can start to answer that question. As far as making progress towards the general education curriculum, under the assumption that they would have no accommodations or support surrounding them throughout the school day. I hear you as a parent myself of a student with a disability. Those conversations are really hard, and I'm glad that you mentioned the emotional piece as a parent, to have to acknowledge whether or not your student is making progress. I think it's an important distinction between, are they making progress towards their IEP goals, or are they making progress towards the general education curriculum? So if that IEP or 504 was to go away tomorrow, would they still be making progress? And so that's the real question the team's trying to get to when they determine whether or not they need an IEP versus 504 or nothing.
Kelsey, did you want to take any other questions, or Andrea, was there any other questions that were
I
common
think-
in the chat?
No, I think we're,
Or are we out of time?
no,
We
good.
are, we're ready to move on to the last section of our meeting. Please, there's a bunch of contact info in the chat. Email SpEdPAC, you can drop your questions in the chat, list your email info if you'd like to be followed up with directly, or your phone number. You can call the help desk, you can email SpEdPAC, there are many options. But right now we're at 7:15. Jack will share the screen to enter into our last portion of the evening.
Yes, I will. Let's see if I can do this.
Just be sure in general, folks, while Jack is getting this.
There we go.
That, you know, this is really a time to tell us everything you really want us to hear in the SpEdPAC community about whatever's on your mind. And just keep in mind, Jack will share with you some general guidelines, but in general and in kindness, be respectful. That's what I would say first and foremost. Jack, you've got some things written here.
Be respectful, yes, especially, yes, thank you. At the risk of being incredibly boring and reading the slides, I'm going to read the slides so we make sure we're all on the same page. Please update your name in Zoom. And if you intend to comment, if you didn't register, please list your name and affiliation in the chat, and you'll be added to the list of speakers. Guardrail, this is a public meeting. Remember to protect the privacy of students. Please refrain from mentioning the name of your students or any other personally identifiable information about your student if possible. This is, of course, your call, but that's our advice. Also, speakers who will require more than 3 minutes will be asked to email the rest of their comment to email@bostonspedpac.org. We will warn you as your 3-minute time limit is approaching. Without further ado, can we have the first speaker, please, Andrea?
Our first speaker is Dana Griswold. I didn't see your name in the chat. Dana, are you here? If so, can you rename yourself as a participant, and then we can unmute. And well, maybe we're waiting for Dana to do that. We can go to our second speaker, Stacy Tulloch. Stacy, are you here? Do we see Stacy in the chat or in the participant list?
There is a Stacy, but I'm not sure if it's Stacy Tulloch. If Stacy is in, they would have to raise their hand.
Yep. Stacy, if you're here, can you raise your hand, or also Dana? Otherwise, next we'll move on to Latoya Strickland, and following Latoya will be Sandra Hughes. Please raise your hand if you've heard your name.
Yes.
I think I saw Stacy.
Next we would have Aslan Moylan. Aslan, we heard from you earlier. Would you like to continue your comment here? Next, we'll have Julie Tarr. Jules Latouche. Jeanne Habush. Patricia McCormick. And then Zaira Almendez.
When you raise your hand, can you please do it in Zoom so that you've got the little hand symbol on your picture? We can't see otherwise. I saw you, Ms. McCormick. You do that under the reactions menu. Do people have the reactions menu?
I see Patty McCormick. So Patty, I'm going to ask you to unmute. And if you could turn your camera on and let us know when you're ready. All right, go ahead. And we will begin the timer.
I'm sorry, I believe my camera is on.
It is
Oh,
on,
yes, it's
yes.
on. I'm sorry.
I just want to mention my son would like his name mentioned for the record.
Sure.
Okay, thank you. Good evening, everyone. My name is Patricia McCormick, and I am the parent of John Russo, a sophomore attending Madison Park Technical Vocational High School, and I'm the site's elected parent representative for this committee. I am also a parent of 30 years and have already raised 2 highly successful children, afforded equitable access through a fully resourced public school outside the city of Boston. I am speaking before this committee with the express permission of my son and the support of my parent peers at Madison Park. Firstly, my son would like to express that his teachers are amazing. My son is a type 1 diabetic, is insulin dependent, and falls on the autistic spectrum. John has a signed IEP whereby doctors' orders are expressly stipulated. Since enrollment at Madison Park, John has been subject to multiple civil rights violations, including his complete expulsion from citywide cross-country and all-inclusive sports program. Within 3 days, and upon learning my son was diabetic, the coach ordered him benched against my orders and that of doctors from Children's Hospital. This resulted in a medical crisis in which my son suffered 3 weeks of diabetic complications and multiple medical interventions, as his insulin was prescribed to account for a 6-day-a-week practice. His body simply couldn't recover from the abrupt benching fast enough. It cannot be said this exclusion was without medical injury, as doctors have meticulously documented it. BPS Athletics supported the coach's conduct, demanded special access to my son's medical file, another civil rights violation. Parties refused to present themselves before the school nurse as ordered for retraining and failed to admit responsibility. Instead, they used the meeting schedule for this purpose to power struggle and justify this conduct. In addition, my son was threatened with exclusion from academic clubs should he suffer a diabetic complication on site. He was denied access to life-saving diabetic supplies on 2 occasions. Administrators at Madison Park prized themselves through many presentations boasting a 96% IEP completion rate, but there is no enforcement reducing that metric to absolute 0. I followed protocol from the ground up to no avail until finally I met with a district executive to force compliance. I was assured civil rights investigations would be conducted, gave a formal report to the Department of Equity, and never heard another word from district leaders. The site rhetoric by administrators is that educators need to work harder instead of acknowledging that 40+ site vacancies and the desperate need to provide professional development for teachers operating in the parents' stead. Thank you.
Thank you, Patty. I'm still having a hard time finding the others that registered in the chat, so I'm just going to go with the people that still have their hands raised. When I unmute you,
I see Tyne in there with her hand raised. Tyne Weston, wasn't she on the list?
she was not.
Oh,
But
okay.
Apologies. I'm just going to start unmuting people, and if you meant to have your hand raised to participate in this comment period, you can let us know. So iPhone guest, I have asked you to unmute. And given no response, I'll move on to the next one with the hand raised, Reagan's iPhone. I've asked you to unmute.
Hi, everyone. Yeah, I just have a question to ask. So I know with our children, who are amazing kids, by the way, regardless of the challenges, they are amazing and beautiful. Don't forget that, guys. Are there any mentorship or friendship programs that are out there for our kids? I know it's hard for them to make friends with atypicals or with other kids who don't have the challenges that our children have. So are there any programs out there in Massachusetts that the school can partner up with and it reached out to some of the parents.
They took me off the mute. Oh, hello?
Yeah, I'm still here. Hello?
Hi.
Yes, Ms. Regan, we can hear you.
Okay. Yeah, that's what I want to know. If there's any like big brother, big sister, mentorship, friendship program for our kids, where they can like really develop friendships. Because I think that would help a lot of our kids along the way. Just like having that buddy that they can hang out with, have play dates, things like that.
Thank you, Reagan. If you'd like to list your email or direct message it to us, we can follow up with you directly on that question.
Okay, thank you.
Yes.
Thank you. So the next person that we have with their hand raised is Liza. I'm going to ask you to unmute and you can let us know if you wanted to participate in this comment period.
Oh, hi, thank you. It's Lisa. I have questions. My niece is on a 504 that needs to be updated. But also we believe she needs to be evaluated for an IEP because she's behind. Like 2 years. I don't know if you can answer this here, if that was what this was for, but or if somebody could email me all that information, because I did put it in the chat, but in her 504 lapsed through COVID and everything as well. So it just, so how do we go about taking care of all of that?
So if you haven't already listed your contact info or, phone or email, the best way for us to reach out to you and follow up with this, listed in the chat, or you can send it to us directly and then we can circle back with you on.
Oh, perfect. And where do we send it directly in?
You could put it in the chat or you can also email us at.
Oh, good. I did. My name's Lisa, and I did put my email.
All right, we'll grab it then. We got it.
Thank you.
Thank you, Lisa.
Lisa.
Thank you so much.
Let's see, I'm just going down the list here. The next person that has their hand raised is Yesenia. I'm going to ask you to unmute and you can let us know if you were intending to participate. Comment period.
Yes, hi. So I think I'm gonna actually email it because I think it's more than 3 minutes what I've gone through and what I need. And I actually have my little one right here, which is not that I may do anything.
All right.
So what I'll do is, I'll send my full comment to the school or to whoever I need to see what they can do, what we can do, because it's a really different situation in terms of placement, transportation, emotional support, and social, everything all together for my family and my son. So I'll definitely email you guys.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for doing that.
Yeah.
Next we have Anne Marie. I'm going to ask you to unmute.
Hi. Can you hear me?
Yep,
yes.
We can hear you.
Okay. I don't know what you're seeing because I'm not seeing myself. So, yeah, just two things I wanted to say. One was at the school committee meeting last night. I watched the SpEdPAC introduction and was really interested to hear the requests that SpEdPAC made to the school committee to be more transparent with the different strands of programs that exist at BPS. I had a personal experience where my son was struggling terribly at a school and nothing was helping, and I had to do my own research and fight my own battle to find a school that would support him. And I just would like to, I don't understand why we need to politely ask that BPS make this information transparent. I don't know why they hold it. I don't know what gives them the right to hold such information from parents. And it's very upsetting to me that SpEdPAC is in this position where you have to politely ask BPS to give parents such vital information. I would love more light on that. And I also have this idea that if BPS doesn't want to do it, then that parents and SpEdPAC could get together and call every single school in the BPS system and ask them what strands they are running, write a little information about a paragraph or two about it and make a public document to just, get the information out there. And then my second issue is that I know of myself and one other single mom at my son's school whose children cannot use public transportation. School buses because of problems with monitors not being trained to interact with kids with anxiety or emotional difficulties. And the little sort of bumbling around in the dark that I tried to do last year to get some help didn't lead anywhere. And I feel like it's a huge problem for me and her and someone else on this chat tonight. For me, I'm a solo parent. I cannot volunteer myself for full-time positions because it takes 2.5 hours for me, a round trip every day, to drop off my kid in Brighton from JP on public transportation. I don't have a car. I'm very low income. It's affecting my life and my ability to provide for myself and my son and our future terribly. And I need school transportation to work for him, and it doesn't. And nobody out there is helping me problem solve this or seems to care. And that's very frustrating. And I would love some help. Thank you.
Thank you, Anne Marie. I saw your email come through earlier, so we already have your contact info and we'll follow up. Thank you. Next in the list is Allison Sexton. I'm going to ask you to unmute. Given no response.
Hi, can you hear me?
Oh yeah, we can hear you. Hi, Allison.
Hi, everyone. My name is Allison Sexton. I am an attorney for Greater Boston Legal Services. I put a little spiel in the chat, but I just wanted to let everyone know that I specialize in student discipline. My organization helps with IEP questions, transportation questions.
Oh, sorry, Allison, you got unmuted for a second. Hold on. Okay.
Sorry, thank you. Sorry about that. And I just wanted to introduce myself formally. And if for some reason GBLS does not have the resources to help the parents in attendance, Mass Advocates for Children is also an excellent resource, and they put their information in the chat as well. So thank you for hosting this meeting, and thank you for everyone who shared.
Thank you, Allison. Next in the list, we have Tanya Morris. Tanya, I'm going to ask you to unmute.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yep, we can hear you, Tanya.
Hi. My question is, I have my daughter, she's a senior now, and she's had an IEP since she started school. And I'm just wondering, how will her IEP follow her as she's transitioning into college?
Thank you for your question, Tanya. If you haven't already, if you could put your email in the chat or message one of us directly so we have it and we can follow up with you. Next in the list is Kim Walker. Kim, I'm going to ask you to unmute.
Hi, my name is Kim Walker. Thank you for hosting this meeting. I got some valuable information. I did want to know if you could have an IEP and a 504 at the same time. I know the 504 is how do you say it? It's through the law, and then the IEP is for like disabilities, right? Did I say that right?
It's a good question. It came up quite a bit in the chat. So it's something that we will respond to in like an FAQ document we send out next week.
Okay. I had another question. So I know with the involvement with the IEP. My son has IEP. He goes to the Homes Intervention School. It's an inclusive school in Dorchester. And my concern is involvement. I know you can always write a letter to the Boston Public Schools special education, but like they don't like you to go to the classroom, or he's been there for a month. I haven't got any progress reports or anything. And I went to draw documents today, and he was sitting there. Teacher told me he hasn't been eating or anything, but he has like readiness disabilities, motor skill disabilities, has a speech delay, so he can't really tell me anything that's going on in the school. So like the lack of communication and then not letting me be involved is kind of concerning. What do you think I should do about that?
Those are good questions, Kim. If you want to send us your email, we can follow up with you with some ideas.
Okay, thank you so much.
Kim. I'm going to keep moving down the list. The next person we have is Bones iPad. I'm going to ask you to unmute. Hello, can you hear us? We can hear.
Dạ.
You should be unmuted.
Tôi chưa thấy thành tôi. Hello, chị có thể nói tiếng cái Việt dịch ha. Chị tên là Phương Nguyễn, mẹ của em. Chị có một đứa con là nó cũng special needs á, thì cháu nó 18 tuổi là vào tháng 10 tới, là 28 tháng 10 tới. Mà cái trường này thì mới vừa là rồi thì nó trường là tên là Axel School đó, Axel High School đó, thì cháu mới chuyển qua trường năm ngoái. Nhưng mà năm ngoái cái cuộc họp IEP thì chị bị miss, họ không có, khi họ gửi giấy mời á thì cái ngày mà chị nhận cái IEP nó đã meeting rồi, thì chỉ có một mình cháu là Thom Nguyễn là nó họp với thầy cô giáo với cái đội IEP cho nên cái đó nó sai. Nhưng mà mình thấy không có đúng, tại sao mẹ không được, mà mình khi xong đó là cứ mấy cô trong cuộc họp IEP, cái cô mà coordinator á, họ chuyển tới chuyển lui nhiều cô lắm. Mà chị thì contact với trường là từ đầu năm tới luôn, nhưng mà cuối cùng cũng không được cuộc họp. Thì năm nay á, họ cái bản mà mình có reject hay đồng ý không á, thì chị đã gửi hơn 1 tháng hơn rồi, là chỉ cần có một cuộc họp IEP có mẹ. Tại vì họ đánh trong cái bản vừa rồi, họ nói là cái IEP là phải họp từ tháng 4 năm này, tháng 4 tới này. Thì lúc đó chị nghĩ là cháu nó đã 18 tuổi rồi, thì chị có phải có được họp không? Hay lúc đó họ nói là chỉ cần guardianship nữa. Thì chị thấy cái đó rất là bức xúc, tại vì có nhiều cái không biết trường là cháu nó đã học cái gì, mà bây giờ khi qua trường này thì nó đã những cái môn như là science, history rồi thì nó không có học nữa, mà chứ không biết như thế nào. Thì cần gặp với cái cuộc họp IB với gặp thầy cô giáo á, thì có gì nhờ cái trong đội ngũ của specialist của Boston Public School nó hết chị. Chị rất là cần có cuộc họp trước vào tháng 10 này, để khi mà ngày 28 tháng 10 là cháu lúc đó đúng 18 tuổi á. Em thông dịch và đề nghị dùm trường là chị rất là cần và rất là concern about that, worry about that too.
I'm not sure if an interpreter was able to enter the room. I can't turn off the interpretation rooms because that'll block accessibility for everyone. I apologize.
Can the translator hop onto the main channel, Charlie?
Unclear of which language that the interpreter needs to be, or if we actually have an interpreter for the specific language. But the interpreter, if there is an interpreter specifically, they can leave their room and they can come in.
Yes, we can hear you in the English channel. Yes, thank you.
Please ask them to leave the English channel for a second. Can they come into the general channel, or are they going to stay in the English channel? Because Fong may not be in the English channel. She may be in the uninterpreted channel.
Hello, sao thầy không họ không nghe được hả? Không nghe rõ tôi nói, không có người thông dịch tại sao thầy? Hay là tôi phải nói tiếng Anh sợ nó không rõ đó.
Yep, we can hear the interpreter. Would you like to continue? Yes, please. Thank you.
Yeah, I try to talk English, but not for limit, not for clear, but I don't know how for translate. I am Phương Nguyên. I had my son Tom Nguyên. He had the attention in ok, cô dịch đi, tưởng đó là cô bị mất miss. Sorry.
We can hear you, ma'am. Ms. Fong?
Yes.
Could you repeat that in English for us? Or do you want to send us an email?
I want to repeat, and after, if they have time, email for two. I am Phương Nguyên, and I had my son Tom Nguyên. He had attended school at Seale High School in South Boston. For this time, the second year. The last year, my son had a meeting with the IEP meeting, but missed me because, you know, when I had the baby work for the IEP meeting, after we had a meeting day, that means I'm missing. But yeah, that means when my son had a meeting and had a many things, I not agree, and I feel very concerned because, you know, my son, he had a charter school in the SpEdPAC in the 5th grade to 10th grade in the robbery rep, and in the last year, the first year, he attend in the Seale school, but then I don't know, he had every year in the charter school, he had a Comcast, had a what is it called?
Internet, you mean?
No, he had attend with the what is it called? What you had what is it? You had a same with the cái gì mà mỗi năm mà mấy đứa học sinh general nó có cái cuộc thi xem đó. Sorry, wait me 1 second, please.
I'm just wondering, we're kind of beyond the 3 minutes for this particular commenter. I know the translation, there were some challenges. So I'm wondering if the translator might be able to help put some of the comments in the chat or help email us the statement. That would be great. Thank you.
Just to had an MCAT.
Give her a moment.
Last year they don't have an MCAT. I don't know. And my son, I need for this year, had a meeting IB, had a meeting because in this year, October 28, Tom, 18 years old. Can you hear me?
Yeah, we can.
Yes. And if they ask me about guardianship something, and I cannot had a meeting, IB meeting with Tom, that means I'm so concerned. I want had a meeting with school in October. And
Ma'am, can you put your email in the chat? We're going to have BPS reach out to you and schedule an IEP meeting to go over the IEP that you have and make sure that it's up to date, and to set a meeting so that for a time that you can make. Would that satisfy you?
Yes.
Okay,
Yeah,
put your email in the chat.
And I want to re-emphasize for families now
Uh-huh.
so that there's no confusion. Make sure you understand, we want to hear from you in this
Yes.
section. This is exactly why we're using this time, but I don't want families to be concerned that someone will not follow up with you. This is public comment to tell us everything you want to share. As long as your contact information is in that chat, or you'd prefer to email us or call us, we will be sure after the fact that BPS gets back to you, or that we get back to you. But do not be concerned if BPS on this chat isn't responding in public comment, because it's meant to serve a different purpose. We want your voice to be heard. That's what the time is for. But we will, or they will get back to you. Make sure your details are in the chat.
We
We
have about 4 more. Go
we
ahead,
are-
Jack, sorry.
We are coming to the end of our scheduled time. That doesn't mean that we're going to shut the meeting down. Kelsey has a couple of words to say, so I want to hand it back to you, Kelsey, and then we'll continue. I'll add some comments and let you know how we're going to do this. Thank you, Kelsey.
Thank you. Well, just reiterating what I just said, but on a more personal note, this is our first meeting. We are so happy that all of you came. It's a huge ask of our families, even though we're all here to support each other, to give of time that frankly belongs to your kids. And we know that. So thank you for coming, for being here, for staying. Thanks to BPS for supporting in the chat, answering the questions and following up with you, which they will. But I just want to remind everyone, we really are in this all together. So if you did not get a question answered tonight, if there's something additional you need to share, if you heard from another parent that you think you can be helpful to, remember that that's why we're here, to serve you and to serve one another. So respond, ask, write, call, email, and even if you don't hear from us right away or tomorrow, in the coming days, we will get back to you. So thank you so much for that. And be sure you come to that next meeting on transportation, because we're seeing a lot of questions about that as well. Jack,
Right.
what else can we say about the rest of this meeting? And
So
thanks.
for the rest of this meeting, 2 issues. One is that we're not going to be able to keep the translators. They have a fixed time commitment, and we can't ask them to stay later. If they can, thank you. If you can't, we understand. And I apologize to any non-native English speakers who may lose their interpretation services. I'm very, very sorry. That's out of our hands. But we will be continuing. The other issues I saw in chat, a very, very good comment that some people would love to hear about what happened to some of the cases that we talk about. And they've asked in prior meetings for a hard copy of the responses and to see us responding to all of the questions live as they're coming through in the chat. We don't have all the resources to answer all the questions in chat, which is one of the reasons that we ask people to email. But in many cases, we can't actually tell the larger community about the outcome of specific cases, because these affect individual children. There's matters of privacy involved. And it would not be cool for us to start telling everybody what's going on with your kid. So I understand your desire, but please understand our limitations. That said, I would like to suggest that if there's a particular case or a particular piece of information that would be of value to you that somebody else brought, let us know. We have a newsletter. There's absolutely no reason that we could not take generalized information about a particular case and use it as a way of explaining some aspect of special needs law or BPS process, or how to handle your child's education from that angle. I think that that's something that we could definitely work on. So please let us know what in particular about a question interested you, and we'll do our best to respond to it in a general and non-specific way. So I want to continue with this process. We want to give everybody as much of a chance to speak as possible. We will stay on for as long as that takes. Everybody's free to stay. You don't have to. That's entirely up to you. I'm just going to say at this point, raise your hand and we'll go in the order that I see on my particular screen. Unless you want to continue monitoring that, Andre, you've done a great job and I thank you for this.
We just have 3 people left with their hands raised, so perhaps we could push through in the last few minutes that we still have.
Let's go.
Online. So we have Yagi. I'm going to ask you to unmute. If you're still with us, Yagi. Yagi, you're unmuted.
صحيح سمعني؟
Oh, we can hear you. Yes, thank you. Go ahead.
أنا آسف ممكن أسأل سؤالي بالعربي وهي المترجمة بتترجم. مساء الخير للجميع.
Is that Arabic? Is an interpreter on who can interpret for him?
I think he said Somali.
Somali?
Do we
I'm
still
not-
have a Somali interpreter here?
I don't think our Somali interpreter showed up.
Ah.
So sorry.
Yagi, if you'd like to give us your phone number, we can call you with a live interpreter on the phone.
Does that make did you understand that, sir? All right, we'll have to move along. Please
Our next
add your information to the chat if you can. Thank you.
Yes. Our next person lined up here is Tang. Tang, I'm going to ask you to unmute.
Hello.
Hi.
Thank you.
We can hear you.
Thank you so much for giving me an opportunity to share my thoughts. I'm extremely concerned about the direction of special education as BPS.
Okay.
There is lack of communication about the inclusion planning team. Parents are not informed ahead of time on how to join, how to participate. Just very poor communication. Same thing with 5th quarter programming, especially for children with disabilities. I'd love to have those transparency. I wasn't in the meeting yesterday. Love to get more feedback on what are the statistics for, students with disabilities and their participation rate relative to Gen Ed. Love to get an update on where we are with DESE, in particular the systemic improvement plan. Where is BPS in implementing those recommendations? Just a general org chart would be nice, be sent out. There's a new position called Assistant Director of High School. Love to know what, I mean, she's great by the way, but I'm just thinking it'd be nice to have an org chart or something to understand who's doing what and why do we have these positions created, right? Those resources that we are devoting to creating these BPS central office positions could be better utilized for the students, right? Because we don't want to just create central office positions for no reason. Same thing with CGCS, the Greater City Council recommendations. Where are we on that, right? Because we get all these advice from them, but what are the outcomes, right? Love to get an update, and hopefully SpEdPAC can push for that. And then also push for more training from parents. Just basic things about like IEP 504, right? How do we make that information more accessible? To be honest, I think last year we BPS committed to having some kind of training, but then they have this 100-something pages long of like document. Honestly, like I don't know how accessible it is to people, but those are some of my thoughts. Thank you so much for giving me an opportunity to share and comment.
Thank you for your comments. You are not alone in your concerns.
Thank you, Tang, and we have your contact info for follow-up. Our last person with their hand raised is Aid. I'm going to ask you to unmute.
Hi, everyone. Yeah, my name is Ade, and so I wrote the comment about can there be even general response to what people are saying. I'm not asking, like when people say, like there are specific things that their kids are experiencing in school. I'm not saying, share everyone's names in the schools, but if you can give general information and say, this is who you should go to for bullying, for example, this is who you should go to within the school, like the title for an IEP or 504 plan, it's helpful for all of us to learn. Sometimes we may have questions, and instead of us asking 13 questions, we're learning from other people. And then also when we hear someone in our school say, I have this question, we can say, you know what, I was at this meeting and these are a group of people you can talk to. So I think getting information and following up later with people and not addressing it at all on this call does everyone a disservice, because it assumes first that everyone is tech savvy enough to to open an email and be able to respond to and be able to see it and get it. And it also deprives everyone for this learning opportunity, because otherwise I should just ask my question and get off the call because I'm not going to learn from other people. And so when there are so many layers of bureaucracy for any student, and then you're adding on, okay, there might be an IEP, there might be a 504 plan, there might be differences in learning, there might be bus issues. I mean, we can't just go through like, well, I'll get back to you individually. Everyone needs to learn from it. So I hope going forward that for all these special education meetings where we can all learn from it and realize that there are even more questions that we should be asking, or in more oversight and more demands that we need to have as parents, I think you would be giving us agency and autonomy if you address these questions for all of us to benefit from. So not getting into the nitty-gritty of Nancy or Paul and their kids, but please give even the general comments that can work for everyone and say, you know what, Paul and Nancy, I'll get back to you about your specific situation later, but please, we can all learn from it if you provide the information. Thank you.
That was, thank you for saying that. That was very, very well spoken. I agree with you wholeheartedly. And the idea that's percolating through my fevered little mind right now is I would love to have a team that could follow up on a case-by-case, question-by-question basis with both the person who asks and BPS to find out what are the touch points for solving this particular problem. We don't need to know details, but we need to know who got called. How did that person solve the problem for the parent? And what's the takeaway? What's the learning that we can share with the rest of the community? I'm going to unmute you again, if I may. And I know this is unusual for our process. I want to make sure that I'm pronouncing your name correctly. Is it Ade?
Yes, Ade.
Ade, thank you. Ade, would you be willing to work with us to figure out a process on how we can do this and help us spearhead this effort?
Absolutely. I'll put my name in the chat. Or I'll put my email in the chat. Absolutely.
I would love to work with you on this. This is a great, yes. Thank you for coming on and giving us a piece of your mind. That's valuable. I appreciate that. Awesome. We have no hands. Nobody has any other questions?
Where are the hands?
Come on, people, let's go.
With that, we are well over time, so I think we can wrap up our meeting, and Jack, I'll let you conclude here.
Thank you all very, very. Oh, wait, we have a raised hand.
Betsy,
Betsy.
I'm going to ask you to unmute.
Hi, I just wanted to
Betsy.
say, hi, in the chat, Mr. Yagi's interpreter has stayed on in order to be able to ask his question. So I just wanted to make sure that got asked before we got out.
Yes, thank you. Can we, I'm going to ask Mr. Yagi to unmute. Oh, that's Ade. Sorry, that's you, Ade. Don't unmute.
أنا سامع هالقيت.
And the interpreter for Mr. Yagi.
أعيد السؤال.
Hello. Are you Mr. Yagi's interpreter? Betsy, I'm going to ask you to unmute. Can you help us with? Can you help us with this? I'm not sure.
Yeah, the Arabic interpreter, Raja, I think he's still muted in whatever channel he's in.
Raja,
maybe.
okay.
I don't know.
Raja, if you can hear me, can you switch over to the main channel? Or I can unmute.
Yes.
I'm not sure how to. Yashi, are you still on?
Yes.
I think I just put him back in here. Raja, are you there?
We can still hear you.
He's there.
We can hear some voices in the background, but we hear your voice louder if you'd just like to continue.
I'm not hearing anything.
Nyage, I think Raja is able to hear you if you're able to speak.
We just got you back. Yeah, we lost you for a second, but now you're back.
Go ahead, Mr. Yagi.
سمعني؟
We can hear you.
Yes.
But I can't understand English very good. I can't ask my question in English.
And you
That's
need
okay.
Somali, not Arabic? That's what I was saying earlier. He speaks Somali, not Arabic.
Ah. There's.
Yagi, I sent you a message in using Google Translate.
Yes.
You can, if you respond, we'll get you someone who speaks Somali.
No, Somali, not Arabic. No, I can't understand Somali.
Yes, we can still hear you. I can. We can hear other voices in the background, but your voice is louder.
I'm not hearing anything.
The beginning of it, yes. Okay. Could you please ask Yagi to send his contact information our way so that we can follow up with him?
My confirmation, my name.
Thank you. So we have Betsy, you still have your hand up. I'm just going to ask you to unmute. Did you have?
Sorry,
Okay.
no.
So we have two speakers left, and that will conclude our evening. Sarah Evans, I'm going to ask you to unmute.
Can you hear me?
Yep, we can hear you.
Okay. I just had a quick question about transportation. I know that in the past, BPS has used creative funding to when a kid misses like ABA or their other therapies to get things like therapy and stuff. And I was wondering if there is any way to use creative funding for transportation, like for instance, e-bikes or pedicabs or something like that. Would that even be possible?
Thank you, Sarah. We, if you haven't already, just definitely a broken record here, but if you can just list your contact info, however you want to get it to us so we can follow up with you directly, we'll do that.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Thank you, Sarah. So our last speaker of the evening, I'm going to ask you to unmute Gina P.
Hi, good night, everyone. I need some assistance, please, because my daughter been going through some bullying and on the bus, and she was assigned one-to-one, but never have that one-to-one on the bus with her. And this been going on from since the year before school year.
Oh my God.
And I had made numerous reports in and still no help at all. So I don't know if y'all can help me with this, please.
Yes, we can.
Yep. Send us your contact info and we'll be happy to follow up.
Yeah, we've had a number of questions in the comments around transportation, bullying, transportation not showing up, monitors and buses and drivers not treating their children with respect. It's depressing. It is soul crushing and heartbreaking to think about what our kids are sustaining. I will tell you there is an open DESE PRS right now addressing these issues. I think it's fair to say BPS is in a lot of hot water for not putting in place systems to prevent this.
Yes, that has been reported to DESE as well. I spoke to DESE as well.
Yeah, there are a number of parents that have filed. And so we will be keeping the community abreast of these developments. Next month, we're doing a transportation topic, and I think this will be a hot issue. So please stay in touch with us, and we can keep you abreast of what's going on. All right.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
All right, Jack, I'll just turn it to you to wrap it up so we can close up.
Actually, I see Eunice, you've got your hands raised. I'm going to ask you to unmute.
Hi. Oh, sorry. The whole time I was putting my hands up, I was putting it at the wrong place. But
no problem. Go ahead, Eunice.
Okay. My question is just that my son goes to a school where he failed like the whole 4 quarters, and I did, and I went through the whole loops. I'm trying to get like informed and get information, and also try to get to like whoever it was that was like the next coordinator online. But I felt like the whole year last year was lost. And not only that, he's on IEP and he has emotional impairment, and he got suspended 10 times. And some of the suspension was just for like vaping in the bathroom, or they even thought that he was vaping in the bathroom. And I felt like that was part of his IEP thing, but they didn't coordinate it with him. They kept saying that he was responsible for it. But I'm just concerned because he's not learning. So I want to go to the IEP meeting and I want to be able to tell them like he's not learning or why he's not learning. And
Yeah.
I'm concerned.
Yeah. Was your son's education affected? I'm sure it was during COVID.
No, he wasn't. He actually improved through COVID.
Really? That's great. You probably should mention that because that may be indicative of some accommodations that he would benefit from. I don't know to what extent BPS is open to remote learning, but if he's benefiting from it, then that's definitely something to argue with the IEP. I don't think you're going to get it, frankly, but it may
not acceptable. And I'm wondering, like, what accommodation should I be telling these people, or should I be saying, because he only got 3 more years left, and my 6-year-olds are smarter than him, and I'm wondering, like, where is he going wrong, or what type of help does he need so he could at least have an average reading, writing, and comprehension, you know, and making decision before school's over.
Yeah, give us your information. It sounds like we're going to want to point you in the direction of getting some reevaluations for your son to understand exactly what's going on with him.
Yeah.
Because if
Yes,
this,
Eunice,
Eunice,
we
we will
drop
be
your
really
contact
sure.
info in the chat or send it to us directly,
Yeah.
that would be great. And we can follow up with you.
Okay, I'm gonna do the best.
We will make sure that BPS contacts you and that we also contact you to follow up. We'll be sure of it.
Yeah, because you know, I spoke to everybody, but nothing was getting done, and he didn't learn, and the suspension wasn't also helping at all.
Yeah. That once you get into the discipline code, things get very complex very quickly.
We can hear an interpreter in the English channel. I apologize. But Jack, for real this time, can we
Does anybody else have any other questions?
Comments.
Jack, let's say our goodbyes. Thank you, everybody.
I just want to make sure, I want to give everybody a chance to speak if they wish it. That's what we're here for.
Yes. I just want to make sure people also know that, again, we've got to get actual questions answered, which will happen also in the coming days.
Yep.
I want people to feel confident about that.
All right, I don't see any other hands being raised, so we're going to end the meeting. I want to thank, oh, no, Kim Walker got in just under the wire. I'm asking you to unmute, Kim.
Hi, my name is Kim Walker. I know we have to put the email. I put my email. I just was wondering if you guys with Boston Transportation, if they was gonna get a better system for Where's My School Bus app, because it's always down. And then like if a school bus breaks down or anything, there's no like communication, and you're waiting for your kid 3 hours and nobody's calling you, letting you know anything. So that's all.
That's part of the open complaint with DESE right now that BPS is supposed to be addressing. We will be keeping everybody abreast of that one.
Okay. Well, have a good night. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Oh, Angela Kane. Asking you to unmute, Angela.
Okay, sorry. I have a quick question for a lot of us who were putting comments in the chat, and you guys haven't been able to respond. There's so many people here and we all have so many questions. Would there be a place or a time that us as parents could come up to a mic, speak one by one, have masks on just to be safe, and just get our questions answered, and also have a pamphlet or something like Day said earlier that could answer all of our questions and guide us where we need to go?
That's a good idea. That's a great idea. I think that might segue well into Ade's suggestion about providing feedback to parents on what kinds of questions have been answered.
Exactly.
The best way to actually come and address us would be at next month's meeting.
Okay.
and that's where we're going to have the open comment.
All right, thank you.
Oh, you're very welcome.
Thank you so much. And I have someone else who may be on. I have a daughter with IEP. She's almost going to turn 18. And then I also have my sister who's on as well, and her son has autism and ADHD. So there's a lot of questions that, I mean, I can tell you, I can see throughout the board that it's well needed. And there's a lot of concern, especially with behavioral management and everything else. So,
yep.
Yeah. And then we appreciate you guys taking out the time and being here for us, because we're feeling it's about time. And
I'm glad you're here.
Really
We're really glad you're here.
Yeah, we are really glad. Thank you, Ms. Kane.
Thank you. You're welcome.
Kathleen, going to ask you to unmute.
Hi, sorry. My question real quick was just that my son, I actually starting to homeschool him as of this year. And I was told by his IEP team when he was in Boston Public Schools that we can continue his IEP and I can just drop him off during the times that like he needs it and pick them up when they're done. But how do I go about doing that?
To continue the IEP would remain in force. So if you're happy with the IEP, I don't believe you need to do anything.
Yes, I'm happy with it, but he just, like, since he doesn't go to Boston Public Schools anymore, I don't know how. She said that I would have to, like, get a personalized IEP or individualized IEP.
Yeah, that's what IEP stands for, individualized.
Right.
So
individualized, I guess.
Yeah. Kim, you could contact your homeschool. He is able to receive all of his services. So you can go through the homeschool office, or if you want to email special ed, we can make sure you know what school he's assigned to, and then we would set up services. So speech, OT, whatever he's entitled to, a school could be assigned, and then you would bring him there for those.
Because I was told that I could bring him, because the school that he was going to is literally right across the street from the house. So I was told that he would still be provided the same team that he has.
Yep, you can absolutely do that. I would talk to your special ed coordinator at that school that wrote the IEP.
Okay, perfect. Thank you guys so much. I'm sorry.
No problem. Sorry to jump on.
Thank you, Kathleen.
Have a good night.
thank you, Kathleen. All right, last calls for comments, questions, concerns. No? All right. I want to thank everybody for coming. I want to thank all of my fellow board members for sticking around and listening. And I especially want to thank Mary, Marcella, and the other BPS staff and the translators who have gone above and beyond the call to stick with us and provide this invaluable service for our community. It means a lot to us. We really do appreciate it. We recognize your efforts. They do not go unnoticed. Thank you. All right, so without any further ado, I hope we will see you all next October. I mean, this coming October. I mean, my God, next month. And please tell your friends, if you know anybody whose children are also with special needs, we welcome everyone. So take care and good night. Thank you all.
Thank you. Good night.